and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with your host, the Anorak. Last week we looked at the Cure album, Faith, a good example of a good gothic rock album from the 1980s. Today we're continuing that trend by looking at another alternate rock album by another classic goth rock band of the 1980s, Siouxsie and the Banshees, and the 1986 album, Tinderbox. We begin the album with the first track, Candyman, a very grungy alternate rock song whose lyrics deal with a somewhat taboo subject of child abuse, pedophilia and molestation. And I gotta say, with a subject like that, this doesn't wishy-washy or sugarcoat or anything. After all, the actual singer of the group, Siouxsie, was apparently abused as a child from a young age. And I gotta say, she captured such feelings and very well. You can tell right off the bat, this does go into very dark territory. And in a way, I'm kind of hoping the rest of the album doesn't go that much far, though she doesn't really sensationalize it or romanticize it or anything. When she goes dark and deep, she goes dark and deep. Just plain serious about it. With lyrics such as sickly sweet, his poison seeks, and a cool missile, it's in his smile, the song definitely paints the picture of this creepy, unnerving, yet tempting and luring dark figure. And could this possibly serve as the inspiration for the movie Candyman with Tony Todd? Something to think about. Next is The Sweetest Chill, another dark song that, while it doesn't deal with a subject as taboo as Candyman, it still accompanies a dark mood and atmosphere. Its lyrics speak from the point of view of either a living person in bed feeling the presence of a dead lover, or from the perspective of the ghost of that dead lover reaching out to hold and touch the mortal person as they're sleeping, almost as if they both know each other are there. And its haunting piano and guitars and the music do help in emphasizing that darkly mood. It's another good dark song from Siouxsie and the Banshees. It then segues very well, in fact, to the next track, This Unrest, a much slower, more suspenseful song, and clocking about 6 minutes and 21 seconds, this is definitely the longest song of the album. Its music starts off very eerie, very slow of course, almost like the theme of an 80s horror or thriller film, and occasionally it'll burst into a very dark, punky riff, almost reminiscent of other dark alternate rock bands that would come in later years, such as Tool, Suede, Pearl Jam, and Radiohead. Some of its lyrics, from this unrest, beats on my chest, shorts out my breath, and all that, it all kind of refers to a literal or a metaphorical demon in some way, as if this thing has been bothering this protagonist their whole life and has been tormented and almost driven to the brink of sanity and even suicide. And in a day and age like this, I think some people could relate to that. Those who have mental disorders or alcohol problems, everyone has their own demons, and something as grim as this could speak to anyone. And then we have Cities in Dust, a more dancier track. This one also deals with somewhat dark lyrics. This time, though, it deals with the apocalyptic volcanic eruption in Pompeii. And these dark lyrics somehow woven surprisingly well with the otherwise slightly more upbeat music. It's definitely a good example of musical dissonance between both both the light and upbeat music and the somewhat grim and semi-apocalyptic lyrics, and with reoccurring phrases such as "Your city lies in dust, my friends," and "We saw you hiding, we saw you lying," and "We found your children," all that. It definitely its vagueness does still help in painting this somewhat frantic apocalyptic picture. Side 2 begins with Cannons, a gloomier yet very clashing song that deals with freakish weathers and the superstitions that result from them. Among some of its lyrical references include the fantasy of spring, the hailstones of summer, and the scorched winterlands. So spring, summer, and winter get a mention in the song, but no autumn? However, with its somewhat poetic lyrics and the mix of strumming guitars, the gloomy bass, and the percussion, do make it feel like almost something out of The Cure or something. And hell, Robert Smith was a member of Siouxsie of the Banshees for a while. Sort of. I may get into that sometime down the road. Then we have Parties 4, another rockier song of the album, but this one acts as a deconstruction of the classic partying and dancing often associated with rock music, with lyrics such as "Your party falls around you, another night reckons you, forgets to rouse you," and all that. Yet it also shows a bit of optimism near the end, with we'll have a party of our own inside, no sighs, don't cry. So it does give off a bit of hope at the end, which is something you may not see of often in goth rock songs such as these. Plus the percussion of Budgie and the guitars of John Valentine Caruthers. I apologized to the man if I butchered his name. I'm sincerely sorry for that. They do help in emphasizing that kind of ambiguous tone, and I still think this is a good song to dance to most nights if you're having a nice party and all that. Next is 92 Degrees, or 92 Fahrenheit. Beginning with a sampled bit of dialogue from the Universal monster film It Came From Outer Space, this one deals with the apparent, I guess you could say, a conspiracy, rumor, fact-ish, that apparently at the exact degree of 92, people will somehow just get irritated enough and almost driven mad in some ways, just kind of almost snap. The blood in our veins and the brains in our heads and all that. And much like City and Dust, it also draws in some apocalyptic imagery, like the Hades oceans and like crazed eruptions and all that. I don't know if that's actually true, that people could just go mad at exactly 92 degrees, but apparently some people believe it. The distorted and echoey guitars in the song also help in establishing and creating that moody tone and atmosphere. It almost gives me a bit of early 90s Porcupine Tree vibe, if you get what I mean. We then close out the album with a very sneaky seg and some fading in Phil Collins as percussion that begin the last track of the album, Land's End, with or without an apostrophe in it. There's another one I would call a goth prog song. This one also experiments with its lyrical content, structure, and overall length while still maintaining the dark and gloomy mood and attitude. This one kind of paints a picture of watching and being at the beach watching the sunset over the ocean horizon. It's calm and serene, but still feels somewhat unsettling, if you get what I mean. With such particular lyrics as "The cliffs around the crashing sea, forever and eternally," and "Take a walk with me down by the sea," this definitely does give a more relaxing and somewhat more optimistic closure to this otherwise gloomy album. And overall, Tinderbox is definitely a good demonstration of the Siouxsie and the Banshees and their wonderful musical styles and talents. If a lot of people may know them for the more punkier, more active songs like Hong Kong Garden and Spellbound, but I think this deserves a good just as much listen and appreciation. Next time, we take a look and a listen at a somewhat more well-known album, and one based on various stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Neat.